This interview is brought to you by Encyclopocalypse Publications. Check them out in the link in the description.
Hi, I'm Pete Atkins. I'm the writer of HELLRAISER II, 3, 4, and Wishmaster, among other things, and you are watching SlasherPepper. I'm doing good, Roger. Thanks for inviting me. Good to see you.
Awesome, for sure. And my first question was, do you have any new projects coming up? Something you can plug, maybe?
Sure. I mean, I don't have anything new coming up in movies because I've really been out of the movie business for 20 years. But I have another book, another collection of short stories has just been completed. So,
oh, nice.
We've got paperback, ebook, and audiobook deals sorted out. I'm still trying to find like some fool who'll risk his or her shirt on a little 300 copy signed limited hardcover first. But if that doesn't happen, we'll just go straight with the paperback and ebook.
Right.
So that'll be sometime next year. Yeah. And then I guess relevant to what we're talking about today, Encyclopocalypse Publications just literally, I think 2 weeks ago, published the screenplay of Bloodline, the fourth Hellraiser movie. So I guess technically, that's like, I just had a book published, but it doesn't feel like I just had a book published because obviously I wrote the script in 1995. So it doesn't feel like I just worked hard and something happened. It's like, oh, look, a free book. Someone printed that. Yeah.
I guess I got a paycheck for that.
Yeah, right. It's like, who knows? This thing would keep earning.
Yeah. Nice.
Sure.
And then speaking of that, like, if I just say Hellraiser IV Bloodline, like what comes to mind from that like time period and writing that film? I know like in production, it was kind of a disaster, but as a writer, like what comes to mind when you think of Hellraiser Bloodline?
Well, a mixed set of feelings and a mixed set of memories, as you might imagine, because like a lot of projects and like a lot of relationships, a lot of friendships in life, it starts off so well, starts off so happy, and then little clues, so yeah, it's a long time ago.
Right.
So I really don't have any ill feelings towards anybody, but it's a mixed bag because we were, let me give you some background, and I apologize I know most of your viewers of this are probably sort of hardcore Hellraiser fans and know all this crap anyway, but for the 2 or 3 civilians who might be listening, I'd been involved with Clive Barker and Doug Bradley since the mid-70s, since we were kids. And so I'd, been brought on, and I'd written Hellraiser II and Hellraiser III. And Hellraiser IV, we found a new home because Miramax had not made but distributed Hellraiser III. And now they wanted to stay in business with us and actually produce and make the next movie. So Clive and I came up with a take. And I want to give credit where credit's due. It was Clive and I, we thought we'd finished, because there'd been 3 movies, and that's usually as much as you get out of a franchise, or it was back then. So we were a little surprised. We thought we'd wrapped it up, and so I think the initial conversation, I think I used a phrase like, well, we'll have to do one that kind of bookends the other 3 movies. And then it wasn't me, it was Clive who said, great, past, present, and future. And so it was him that had this idea of 3 distinct time periods. And his first, he said, it could be Jack the Ripper. Like Jack the Ripper was sort of a Cenobite, and it'll be Victorian London. And then I think I said, obviously we had more than one conversation, but I think it was all in that very first 4 minutes. And I said, and what's Act 3? Pin it in space? And he said, yeah, why not? And the only thing I can take credit for in terms of the genesis of I take credit for the script, but in terms of the genesis of the idea, I said to him, Victorian London, why don't we make it pre-revolutionary France and it can be the toy maker? Because Clive had invented the toy maker sort of off screen in his original novella, The Hellbound Hearts. He'd named him Philippe Le Marchand. And so I said, why don't we make it then and make Le Marchand a character and trace his family through past, present, and future? And he said, great, let's tell Miramax. And and it was real easy. Like, I'm not sure Clive came in. It might have just been me that went in. I met with Bob Weinstein. Maybe Clive was there. And basically just pitched that. There wasn't a story as such, but there was that was the idea. That we would follow the invention of the box and the inventor's bloodline through to the eventual. And again, we thought we were finishing it, the complete end of Pinhead and the Cenobites. We'd wrap everything up and that would be the end. And I think it was like, I guess Hellraiser 3 had done pretty well for them. So they were predisposed to want to stay in business. So I think it was like a 4-minute pitch. And they said, great. And they commissioned me to write the screenplay. And then...
as easy as that, right?
Yeah, it was. And it's rarely as simple as that.
Yeah.
But it was like one meeting, sure, we're all in business. And then I wrote the script, and this, I don't want to sound egotistical, but I want to stress that we were still all friends. Miramax loved the script. They were really gung-ho for it. They greenlit it after 2 drafts, I think. And so all those memories are good. There was sort of a little pleasant anecdotes along the way that, your horror fans, your fans who are also horror fans.
Yeah.
Like before Kevin Yeager came on board, they were looking around for other directors. And I got to meet with Stuart Gordon 3 times, I think. Stuart Gordon, who'd made Reanimator and From Beyond. And I was a huge Reanimator fan. So that's a good memory too. It was like, hey, I got to hang out with Stuart. And then I guess Miramax and Stuart couldn't come to terms.
Right.
So suddenly he wasn't involved. But they did get Kevin Yeager, who's a brilliant special effects guy, as I'm sure you and your viewers know. And Kevin loved the script too and said, great, let's go. And he and I think I did one more draft once he was attached as director, and certainly incorporated any ideas he might have had. Though the book we just published was the one that got the deal going. I haven't included any later rewrites and stuff.
Right.
So this was all great. All those memories are good. Kevin was a great guy. Doug was back on board to be Pinhead. They found Valentina to play Angelique. She was terrific. And then things didn't go great. The Miramax basically formed an in-house label, Dimension, to do the horror movies. And the infamous Harvey was not in charge of Dimension. It was his brother, Bob. So we got to meet Harvey now and again. I was a smoker back in those days, and I got to admit, at the risk of being cancelled by association, I always loved it when Harvey came in for the script conferences, because the Miramax executives I usually worked with wouldn't let me smoke. Because, you don't smoke you grew up in a world in which people don't smoke in office buildings, but you still could legally, but it was being frowned on. And so my development exec, a very nice guy, Jeff Kurz, would always say, you can't, Pete, you can't. But Harvey smoked like a fucking chimney. And obviously nobody's going to tell Harvey, it's his company, nobody's going to tell him he can't smoke. So whenever I walked into a story conference and Harvey was there, I was like, yes! And I would plant myself next to him, because he would be filling ashtrays by the fucking truckload. And I would just sit there and smoke and smile at Jeff.
Right.
Tell me not to smoke now, motherfucker.
That's hilarious.
So you see, even the Harvey Weinstein memory is a fun one, which is a terrible thing to say these days.
Yeah.
But it was mainly Bob's company. here's what happened, though. I think that they weren't horror people. They had no expertise in making low budget horror. And they hired a producer for Kevin, who again was a nice person. So, I mean, I don't want to name, I'm happy to say nice things about people. I don't want to name people and say, she was not cut out for this particular genre. And the way I knew that was that literally, I think about 10 days before it was going to go into production, she called me late at night, kind of angry, and said, I've just had your script budgeted, which was the first red flag, because I thought, you've just had the script budgeted? Aren't we shooting? But I didn't say, I said, uh-huh. And she said, again, kind of pissed, the special effects alone are going to cost 3 times the planned budget for this movie. And I said, thinking I was being funny, what? Who did you get a quote from? ILM, which, are they still around? There was George Lucas. They were the most expensive effects company in the world.
I see.
And I said, who did you ask? ILM? Ha ha. And she says, yeah. And I thought, oh, we're fucked. Because first of all, they were optical effects. And it's like, these are the Hellraiser movies. This is old school practical effects. You need guys with hands to make fabulous prosthetics, and they'll do it for peanuts. So that was a big red flag. And then Kevin just got screwed. They were slashing his budget, in my memory, on a daily basis. Like, I mean, that can't literally be true, but it was. It got bad, Roger. And I tried to be a team player, and I'd get calls from the producer every day saying, you got to cut this, you got to cut that. And I'd try and stitch the shit together.
Right.
And about 3 weeks into the shoot, I said, I'm not doing this. It's like, there's no movie left. So I quit. And then, famously, once they'd wrapped, Kevin actually quit as well during post-production. But he didn't just quit. He took the legendary Alan Smithy pseudonym.
I was so shocked to hear that the first time.
Yeah, right. Right. It's I don't know how many movies Alan Smithy has done since. I know there were a couple. But
I know there's
anyway,
the Birds too, right?
I think you're right. Yeah.
Might be.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a Wikipedia entry, and Alan Smithy. You can go and look at his very impressive filmography.
Yeah, we never hear from Alan anymore, right? I would love to have him on the show.
That would be great. That's right. That guy has range. He does all genres, all levels of quality. My God, what an auteur! I wonder. There must be Smithies in the world. It's an unusual last name, obviously, which is why the DGA picked it as the pseudonym. But there must be Smithies. We should find a young married Smithy couple and say, we will pay you $1,000 if you call your kid Alan, and you have to sign this agreement that when he's 18 he'll do an interview with Roger.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But anyway, so that's when the memory sort of turned bad as I watched the movie kind of go up in smoke. Although I have to say this, nobody wants to make a bad movie. Obviously, nobody had it in for Kevin.
Isn't that funny sometimes to make that realization?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Because you turn everybody into a villain. When it's happening.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, these fucking monsters, they're destroying this. They hate me.
Exactly.
And that's not usually the reason. I mean, sometimes it is.
Yeah.
People can get grudges and be unpleasant, but nobody wanted to screw it up. And also the odd thing is, and I gather you might be one of them, there are people who like the movie as it is just fine.
Oh, man. I don't know.
It's your favorite of the franchise, right?
Yes. How did you know that?
That's great. That's great. Well,
Yeah.
you see, you're probably the one person who might read the published screenplay and say, this sucks. The finished movie is so much better.
I don't know. Like sometimes you hear things like, oh, this could have happened. And then you think, oh, that's really, really cool. And that would have made the movie better.
Sure.
But as it is, it's so good. And like, that's especially great to hear, well, you talking about this now, it's so crazy to think how good of a movie it still is, you know?
Well, that's terrific. I mean, thank you very much. I mean, Kevin, that means more to Kevin, I'm sure, than to me. I mean, because he really did. He was badly treated. So it's terrific that people like it, and thank you for liking it. It's got some of Doug's best lines and best performances in, and and I think Gary Tunnicliffe's design for the Angelique Cenobite is, fantastic. One of the top Cenobite designs.
The scene with the twins. They get like drilled together.
Yeah, well, I don't know if they pronounce the name Polish or Polish, but you know that those are the twin filmmaker brothers who went on to make very esoteric art house movies.
Oh, really?
I'm blanking on their first names. If you follow the IMDb link from the credit on Bloodline, you'll be surprised to discover that these are like art house
it's darlings. So funny sometimes.
Yeah, right. Because we also have Adam Scott in the movie, who ended up on Parks and Recreation, and I don't think Adam includes this movie on his resume. And which
I mean, on IMDb it will be there regardless, but I'm not sure if he would put it on his resume personally.
Right, he doesn't talk about it a lot.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's so it's a mixed bag of memories, and like with everything, the longer the years that separate you from the painful memories, the more amusing and less painful they can become. So,
or the other way around, though, because sometimes
you'll be like, really eat at you.
Yeah. Sure. And you'll just completely forget about the good things and just turn people into villains. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, that's weird. I wonder what it is that because I can do both, like most people. Some I can like smile and make jokes about some things, and then and I'm in my 60s now, but I can still remember certain moments in high school where it's like, that fucking prick.
Yeah.
And it can really like, oh my God, I should have hit him, or So
it's probably
not that I am propounding violence in any way. It's never a solution, boys and girls.
Exactly.
But yeah, things can really fester with you, and I guess what it is. I think in terms of career and projects and stuff, if you're lucky enough to be busy at the time something like that happens. Like, I think I was writing Wishmaster by the time Bloodline came out. So there were all those bad feelings about Bloodline, and it didn't perform that well at the box office, not as well as the previous three anyway. But I think I was certainly writing Wishmaster. We might even have been in production. So, and I just finished my second novel in 97. Yeah. So if you've got shit going on, the bad shit can you can maintain a sense of proportion, let's say.
Yeah.
Whereas if it was like, the phone's not ringing, nobody likes me.
Exactly. Yeah.
It could really, all I've got to dwell on is my anger at what happened there. But I, by the way, I'm very flattered and complimented. I saw your ranking. And
it came out like
all my three get in the top tier. So,
man,
God bless you.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, then you also know I really like Inferno. Obviously there are a lot of things that could have done better. I would have loved to have seen more Pinhead, of course, and but how do you feel about those later sequels? And
well, here's the terrible thing. It was not terrible, actually, because it's better than having to find I haven't seen him.
Wow.
I watched, which is the one that Ashley's in. Ashley came back for.
Oh man, that's my least favorite. That's Hellseeker.
Hellseeker. Yeah, and that's a shame, because is that also has Craig Sheffer in? Is that right? He's the guy from Nightbreed. He played Boone in Nightbreed. Yeah. Yeah, I remember going down on set. Obviously, Doug still lived in England at that time, but he was out here. So I would go and visit them when they were making those movies, just to hang with my old mate. And I remember that set visit because I saw Craig again. I hadn't seen him since we were doing Nightbreed. So I wanted that movie to be good, but I didn't finish watching it. So, and then what's the one that's the video game one?
Oh, that's Hellworld. But about Hellseeker, it's like I did reactions to all the films, right? So I have to watch them entirely, else I don't have a 10-minute video for my audience.
Sure.
So, but Hellseeker was one where it was really just a pain. I mean, maybe that's like an artistic choice, they wanted you to feel the pain and suffering.
Well, you think you like hell? Well, let's put you through hell.
Exactly.
Yeah, probably not.
No.
I don't know. And again, I don't want to badmouth anybody involved, because I haven't really seen.
Right. That's
the reason I mentioned the video game one.
Yeah.
It's that was on by accident. Like I was just channel hopping 10 years ago. So I kind of saw the video game one, but it was very late at night. I was probably drunk, and I can't. Is Lance Henriksen in it?
Yeah.
So that seemed, I don't know, but I haven't seen the others. I assume Inferno is at least visually good, because it's Scott Derrickson.
So good. Yeah, Scott Derrickson, exactly.
Right. So it's probably a good-looking movie.
Yeah.
I know that, I mean, I wasn't watching them, but I guess Clive sort of kept a proprietary interest, although he wasn't involved with those sequels at all. But I think he and Scott Derrickson got into an online fight in the prehistoric days of the internet. There were no social media. So I'm trying to think where they were. Probably message board. You don't even know what a message board is, do you? Right?
Nope.
Really? That's hilarious. Prior to social media, they would have these sites. I'm trying to think if there'd be any up that would still. I'm sure there are still a few up there, but they were, as I say, kind of prehistoric social media, where there would be topics posted, and if you're a member of the group, it's kind of like the comment section in social media.
Yeah.
But it was entirely text based.
Maybe
there was no
Reddit. You could maybe compare it to Reddit.
Little bit maybe like that. Yeah. The good thing about them was they were very niche. They were very specific. Like, there could be a gangster movies of 1945 message board, right? Where there'd be 17 of you, but you could talk every day just about gangster movies of 1945. So you got a lot of these niche little interests. So I'm guessing it was probably some kind of horror movie board where Clive and Scott got into it.
Isn't that like weirdly coincidental too, though, that in a message board they somehow found each other, or like could you look each other up or something?
I think, as ever with these things, somebody opened their stupid mouth to a reporter, and I don't know if it was Scott or Clive. And I'm hypothesizing at this point. Either Clive said to a reporter when he was being interviewed about something else, I paraphrase, "I saw that movie, it's shit." Or Scott, being interviewed by a reporter for somebody else, said, "I've made the best Hellraiser movie there's ever been." And whoever it was that kicked it off, the other one responded with "I'm not sure I agree with you, sir." And it escalated. And probably nobody but me remembers that. It didn't make a splash or anything, but I just...
Right. Nowadays, there would be headlines and shit,
Exactly, yeah. Like Dread Central or Bloody Disgusting would get like a month's worth of stories out of it. Derrickson parks outside Barker's house. Was he armed? It'd be...
Yeah.
They'd be doing anything.
Okay, give me more details so I can make a video about it. Sure. I'm kidding.
Well, let's animate it.
Exactly.
Yeah. So yeah, but the truth is, I haven't seen those other movies.
Right.
I like them for the main reason I liked them was they gave Doug a payday every 6 months, right the way through until the last two. Yeah. And for the most part, I don't really have any professional or personal connection other than with Doug, with any of the people involved in it, except Gary Tunnicliffe, he did special effects on Wishmaster with me. He came on, he's younger than the guys at Image Animation that I started out with, Bob Keane and Jeff Portas and those guys. But Gary really became the Pinhead makeup guy for, I think, essentially all of those sequels. And then, of course, he ended up writing Revelations and writing and directing Judgment. So I gather Revelations is not popular, but I think Judgment has its fans.
Yeah, Judgment isn't that bad,
Right?
It's like one of
high
those
praise,
things.
right? It isn't that bad.
Yeah, it has its moments, and
sure.
it has a lot more passion than Revelations, that's for sure.
Okay, cool. And I gather Paul Taylor, T. Taylor,
he did a good job.
Did a creditable job, yeah.
It's one of those things, just like with Robert Englund and Freddy Krueger. It's like, it's not Doug Bradley. you know what I mean?
Right.
Paul does a really, really good job.
Yeah, no, that's great to hear. And we haven't met, but we got people in common, and he does the conventions now, I guess, with a lot of the other actors. And I hear he's a nice guy. So,
yeah, for sure.
Good luck to them all. That's what I say.
Yeah.
But I guess even when these purported remakes happen, I guess they will be brand new, fresh starts. So I guess Paul probably won't get to play him again, and certainly Doug won't be back.
No.
So yeah,
we'll see. Which is,
I mean, I think Doug played Pinhead way longer than Karloff played the Frankenstein monster. Way long. Christopher Lee played Dracula. Doug, you're already in the record books. Don't worry about it now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And well, you mentioned Nightbreed, and it's obviously well known that you were on that set. But did you ever get to meet Nicholas Vince? He was the chatterer in the first and second one.
Sure. Yeah. No. Of course. Yeah. No. Awesome. I know Nick. I mean, Nick still lives in England, so obviously, we don't hang out. But yeah, no, I knew Nick very well. In fact, during Nightbreed, I was a second unit director on Nightbreed, and I also played a transvestite breed member.
Yeah.
But I ended up on the cutting room floor.
Oh, no way.
Fucking Clive. What the hell? You know why? I was just too good. I would have pulled focus from the main cast.
Right, exactly. You would have stolen the show completely.
But yes, I did work on the movie as a set. There were actually 3 units. Andy Armstrong did a lot of the action unit, and I shot a lot of the Midian stuff, just the sort of general monsters going about their day stuff. But although I had met Nick, obviously, on Hellbound, but on Nightbreed, I'm trying to, and it's weird. We had a little gang of 5 because we'd wrap. There were long days out at Pinewood, but we had this little gang of 5 who would go out getting drunk late at night in London, and it was me, Nick Vince, Barbie Wilde, who was the female Cenobite in Hellbound, but wasn't in Nightbreed, and Bobby, who was the lead in, she played Laurie in Nightbreed, and Neil Gaiman, who was not in Nightbreed, but I was becoming friends with, and it seems a very, they're all great people. I don't know how we became this little gang of 5 that would go out, and it's like, well, wait a minute, Bobby and Neil weren't even on the fucking movie. How did this happen? Were they just hanging out?
That is so funny. Yeah. That is really funny.
So yeah, so no, I know Nick very well. Nick used to take us down to this drag queen bar called Madame Jojo's, and that was a lot of fun. They were wild days. So yeah, I don't know him as well as I did back then,
Right.
but you'll find this, Roger, as you get older. The weird thing is, friendships you form in your youth, you can go 10 years without seeing somebody. But if you were close friends, you just pick it right up.
Yeah.
And the last time I saw Nick in real life, I think was about 8 years ago at a convention. And, you know, it just felt like it was maybe a week since we'd seen each other before. So,
right.
So
that's really funny.
One of the few pleasures of getting older is that sort of, I don't know, the sort of sustainable, even at a distance, chronological and geographical, the sustainability of friendship.
Mutual respect without having to talk.
Yeah, no, he's, Right. Why did you mention him? Have you interviewed him?
Yeah, I interviewed him too. He's really great. Yeah. That's really funny.
Oh, yeah, no, he's wild and funny. Yeah, he's great.
I can't imagine what that was like, you know, hanging out in bars like the five of you. That sounds like a blast, totally.
It was great. We were young and stupid. What are you going to do?
Right. You basically called me out because that's what I am now too.
Yeah, sure. Well, let me assure you, the people you are hanging out with those bars in now, you'll still like them in 30 years' time.
Can't wait for that. Hell yeah.
People who, because I'm sure you've got sort of crossover interests, your viewers, because obviously of that gang of five, without doubt, the one who became the most famous was Neil. And somewhere in the crowd watching Anne sing, you can see Neil Gaiman in a cowboy hat. So now, whether that's in the original cut or only in that restored cut they did, I don't know. But we did get, in fact, you can see me and Nick Vince in cowboy hats too.
Yeah.
But just in the crowd watching us sing. But so for if any of your viewers are also hardcore Neil Gaiman completists, they need to track down the most complete print of Nightbreed and see if they can spot the 2 frames where Mr. Good Omens is wearing a cowboy hat.
Nice.
You'll
have to look out for that.
Sure.
Guys, real quick, I just wanted to interrupt this interview by giving a shout out to Encyclopocalypse Publications. Thanks to them, they made this interview possible. And as I've mentioned in the video, and Peter's actually mentioned in the video, they recently published the original Hellraiser script, the original screenplay, in a beautiful paperback format, as well as a Wishmaster novelization. That one came out a couple months ago, I think. Really cool stuff. I'm a huge novelization fan, and the fact that they're doing this and pretty much giving older screenplays a new life within a novelization format, I think that's super cool. So I'll put a link to their store in the description. Definitely go check them out if you're interested, and enjoy the rest of the interview. And obviously, I already noticed the fantastic poster behind you of Wishmaster.
Sure.
And what was it like writing that film, and how did you kind of come up with that story and idea of that character?
Well, I meant to swap the poster out before interviewing that, because I've got posters for the Hellraiser movies.
Nice.
And I knew we were going to be talking about Bloodline. I was going to swap it out and put the Bloodline poster there.
Oh, no. I didn't.
But I forgot.
I did my homework. I did my homework. I watched Wishmaster. I freaking loved it.
Oh, you did? Oh, thanks,
yeah.
Man. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. And that was, especially now, again, I don't want to sound like an old man doing this. Oh, as the years pass. But as time goes on, we were getting a kick out of it at the time. But the longer we're separated from, the more glad I am we did it. We got every 80s horror person we could into
it's
that
insane.
Thing. Right. You Ted
even
Ray,
Danny Hicks.
Angus Scrimm does the voiceover for the tall man from Phantasm. There's a voiceover, and
so crazy.
But I can't. I got Tony Todd, but I can't take any credit for that's all Bob Kurtzman's phone book.
Right.
Because Robert Kurtzman, who directed Wishmaster, Kurtzman was the K in KNB, who were, and still are, they do The Walking Dead now. They were the premier prosthetic makeup effects group.
It's really funny you mentioned that, actually.
Industry.
Because
and so Bob, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Because like Danny Hicks and Ted Raimi are obviously in the film together.
Sure.
And they know each other probably from Intruder, which Robert did the effects of.
Yeah, right.
And Greg Nicotero too, who obviously now work on The Walking Dead. It's
right.
Man, that's funny.
Yeah. No, exactly. And that's what I mean. It was from the get-go, I was sort of writing it as a farewell kiss to that kind of it's a 97 movie, but in a way it's a sort of farewell to the 80s. It
totally
style.
Is. Now that you mention that, yeah.
Yeah. Because I can't remember if it was before it came out, but it was around the same time. We were being replaced by the next wave, which was the sort of Scream and Blair Witch, so that sort of character monster thing, the Freddys, the Jasons, the Michaels, the Pinheads, that was, well, people still like them today, which is great, but it was like that had been the primary form of horror.
You don't get those movies anymore.
So this was a sort of last goodbye to that. So I'd put lots of Easter eggs in the script in terms of names and references and places. I didn't have those people's phone numbers, but Bob had put makeup on every one of those fuckers. So he could just get them. We got Kane Hodder, we got Robert, obviously. You've mentioned Ted, Danny. We got Buck Flowers, who'd worked with John Carpenter. He plays the hobo.
Right. Yeah.
And so, and we had the Pursuitsu statue from The Exorcist because Bob had the Pursuitsu statue from The Exorcist at his house. So we could put them all in. And that was really thanks to Bob's address book. He just, called them in. So yeah, it really was. It was a lot of fun, that movie, sure. And what's great, and again, time is kind. Wishmaster actually did okay at the box office, and it got good reviews. But I think a lot of, funnily enough, the good reviews came from mainstream people or civilians. Hardcore horror people, I think, sort of thought, this is a bit silly, because I think horror was taking a darker turn.
Right.
At that point. And it's always a pendulum,
Yeah.
But over the years, like I say, time has been kind. It's like I Wishmaster was not that I was never ashamed of it or anything, but it's like I'd happily let people talk about the Hellraiser movies I did, and maybe I would mention Wishmaster because there were people who weren't as into it. But now it's like it's really been rehabilitated in the eyes of horror fans. And people like it, so which is terrific. Yeah,
awesome. Yeah, that's great. And I guess you are kind of the Clive Barker to the Wishmaster series. So have you seen the sequels of the Wishmaster series?
I have not.
Really?
No. Well, come on. Well, Andrew Devoff, who played the Djinn, again, as with Doug, I'm glad Andrew got another payday out of it by doing Wishmaster 2. Yeah. I know he's not in 3 and 4.
Yeah. 3, I watched 3. I didn't like that one.
Right.
I like 2, but
yeah,
I love the first one. Not just because you're sitting here.
2's probably good. It's written and directed by Jack Shoulder, who'd done The Hidden and a couple of other good movies. I don't know if this is true or not, but at the time, I knew an executive at, back then it was called Live, but they changed the name to Artisan Entertainment after Blair Witch. And I knew somebody there, and he said, do you know how Jack got the job writing and directing? And I said, no. He said, he came in and he explained to our CEOs what a shitty job you and Bob Kurtzman had done and how he could save the franchise.
What?
So I've thought for decades, fuck you, Jack Shoulder. But I realized I don't know that that's true. That was one guy said that to me a long time ago. So again, time healed all the wounds. So I don't know, but when I heard that at the time, I thought, well, I'm not going to watch that fucking movie.
Yeah.
So I didn't watch it. Is it Sean Connery's son is in 3 and 4? Am I making that up? Is that delusional?
I have no idea. That I didn't recognize anyone. Jason Connery?
Yeah, maybe I'm making that up. I might be getting that mixed up with something else. But,
right.
No, yeah. So I don't know. I don't know. But so Wishmaster 2 is okay. You liked it?
Yeah, I like that one.
Oh, okay.
Because it's like it tries something new and does it good, With part 3, it's just I don't know about that one.
Okay. Well, it's the funny thing is, like, both in the sort of horror booms of the past, the 30s and 40s, and then the 50s and 60s, eventually, even the bad movies, they take on a sort of nostalgic sheen, because even if they're bad aesthetically or artistically, they do seem, what you say, totemic or emblematic of their time. So if you have a fondness for those flavors and those tones, like I'm a big fan of the movies, and there's a lot of the lesser examples of those things that I can enjoy perfectly well, because it's like, well, it's the same DP.
Right.
It looks the same.
Yeah.
Didn't Lon Chaney wear that suit in The Wolfman? There's
exactly right.
So you get all this separate pleasure from it, just to like, oh, look, these guys, they're still working. This is great. So I guess I'm hoping that the Hellraiser sequels and the Wishmaster sequels, in the fullness of time, will again sort of satisfy people who like that stuff without suddenly becoming great movies. There'll still be people who think, I just like watching them. I like to be in that universe.
For sure.
Yeah.
Guys, I just wanted to take another quick break from this interview to make you aware of a special signing event that Encyclopocalypse Publications is hosting. At 3 p.m. on the 4th of December, Encyclopocalypse Publications will be holding a special signing event at Dark Delicacies in Burbank, California. Peter Atkins will be signing Hellraiser Bloodline, the official screenplay, and Wishmaster, the novelization. So if you've been enjoying this interview and would like to have a chance to meet Peter himself, definitely go there to the signing. I wish I could have been there. I'm in Holland, as most of you know, so it's a flight away for me, and unfortunately the time isn't right for me to fly to California, but man, if I had the chance, that would be awesome, because Tom Holland, William Malone, John Penny, Patrick Sheen Duncan, and Brian Usna will be there too. As you know, Tom Holland, William Malone, and Brian Usna have also been interviewed on this channel. So if you're in the Californian area and have a chance on the 4th of December at 3 p.m. to be at this special signing event, definitely make sure to be there. I'm jealous of you if you get the chance to be there. Come on. So get your ass out there, get your book signed, and enjoy the rest of the interview.
And well, we already talked about a bunch of horror movies, but what are some of your favorite horror movies?
Well, I mean, I really am old school. So because again, you grew up in a multimedia world where accessibility, the kind of accessibility you guys have growing up to movies, we could only dream of when I was a kid.
I bet.
Occasionally a movie would get...
I have to make this fun. You could only wish for.
Yeah, you're gonna have something pop up, right? You'll you get a little gif of Andrew saying "as you wish" or something.
As you wish.
But yeah, so every movies would still be re-released when I was a kid. You would get sort of second releases 5 years after the first one. But other than that, videotape, this is how old I am, Roger. Videotape, never mind DVDs. Videotape didn't exist when I was a kid. So and there were only 3 TV channels, and obviously no DVRs. You couldn't pause it, take a piss, come back and pick it up. It was like, go to the bathroom before this television showing starts, because you've got to lock there and watch it. So you would look ahead, and if a horror movie was on TV, you booked that spot and you sat yourself down and you watched it. And that was true right the way through to like the late 70s. It was still, I can't remember when the VCR was invented, VHS and Betamax, I guess late 70s, early 80s. So eventually you could start recording things. But anyway, that's a big sidebar to what you were actually asking. As a 7, 8, 9, 10-year-old, my exposure to horror was at one remove. There was a famous magazine from back then called Famous Monsters of Filmland, which was kind of the Fangoria or the Rue Morgue of its day. And so I would read about these movies and see these gory photographs long before I ever got a chance to see them. But then they would show up on TV. So it's like I'd read about King Kong and I'd read about The Bride of Frankenstein. And then eventually, one glorious day when I'm 11 or 12, King Kong is on television this weekend. So I think the scarcity, the lack of accessibility to these things certainly made them more precious to us than they might otherwise have done. But they're also fantastic. And the 2 I just mentioned, King Kong and Bride of Frankenstein, are not just 2 of my favorite horror movies, they're 2 of my favorite movies of all genres, all time. And in fact, my top 3, my holy trinity, and I love Bride and I love Kong, but they are mainstream populist entertainment. So I'll gain a little bit of pretentious cred back by saying that my 3rd favorite is a French movie, Jean Cocteau's Orpheus from 1950, which is a lot more respectable to the intelligentsia and the art house crowd. But I don't differentiate between them. And it's interesting, they're all 3. Kong is 1933, Bride of Frankenstein is 1935, Orpheus 1950. All 3 of them are black and white. And all 3 of them are, I realized decades later, I didn't know this as a kid, I just knew I loved them. But they're all about being on the side of the people who want to know the shit we shouldn't know. Because traditionally the ethic in horror movies is, the cliched version is, there are some things God doesn't want us to know.
Right.
Leave these things alone, and they bring out the Christian iconography and it's always a cross that'll kill a vampire and all that crap. But Bride of Frankenstein has this character, Dr. Pretorius, who, really should be an icon for the LGBT community, because there's no mention ever made of Pretorius' sexuality, obviously, but he's a very odd, interesting fellow. And he's not the protagonist of Bride of Frankenstein, but he is the driving force who just wants to do shit and know shit. He makes little homunculi because he can. He heard that Frankenstein made a man. Now we should make a woman. So you got that guy. Then you've got Carl Denham in King Kong, who just wants to get out there, find the monster. And in Orpheus, it's about a poet who's blocked, who's got writer's block, and he gets his mojo back by following death incarnated as a hot princess into the underworld. And there's a poem by James Elroy Flecker called Hassan, which has this great iconic line in it, which is, "For lust of knowing what should not be known." And I think all 3 of the, right? See, you're excited, right? It's like, yeah, I'm up. And all 3 of those movies, yeah, right. All 3 of those movies are on the side of that. I mean, at the end, Pretorius is punished in Bride of Frankenstein. Denham lives at the end of King Kong, but he's learned not to mess with nature, And Orphe doesn't get to spend his life with death at the end of Orphe, but the impetus that drives all three of those movies is that they're totally on the, consciously or not, they are on the side of for lust of knowing what should not be known, as opposed to telling us, know your place, stay quiet, say your prayers. It's saying, no, check that shit out. So I think that's why but they're also, remarkable achievements.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
In so many ways. But I think it's probably that ethos that drives them and makes them my favorites. And then, the usual suspects. I loved, so that was when I was a kid. That's when I formed that. And then as a late teenager and just getting into my 20s, we were having the 70s boom. I won't talk about The Exorcist because that just fucked me up. I mean, that was when that came out and, first threw people up. But the idiots that went and saw it on first release in the theaters were like, oh my God, this thing is going to kill me. So I don't even know if I would say that's a movie I like, but it's like I've got to make a note of it because it's like, whoa, this is, because I guess I'd never really been scared by horror movies before. I kind of loved them and been thrilled by them. But The Exorcist was like, at least how it felt to me, that it was like, this fucker's not kidding. It's like, this is this scary shit. But in terms of loving stuff, shortly after that, we got like Brian De Palma's early movies, Phantom of the Paradise and Carrie and The Fury. Loved them. Cronenberg's pictures, obviously.
Oh man,
yeah, right. And I remember Clive and I go way back. As I say, we were both grew up in Liverpool, and we went and saw Dario Argento's Suspiria together. And we're just knocked out just on the visual level. So I think you got those from the 30s. I love the Hammer movies as well. I don't want to miss them out. The Cushing and Lee Hammer movies. And then those 70s things, De Palma and Argento being my two favorite directors. And then, all the stuff you'd expect. And then, of course, I was lucky enough to, join the industry by the late 80s. So at that point, it's more like, well, my friends are making these films. So I don't know, you look at them in a different way then. It's like, well, I gotta like this. My buddy made it, or
right.
I gotta like it. That hot actress I dig is in it, or well, I guess that's always true. But might be somebody you actually know. I'm trying to think of, recent ones that I've particularly, I don't know. I always feel with the recent stuff, it's like the ones I don't mention, I might know people involved and they'll get offended. So I'll just talk about those old ones. We'll say that. Those are the Holy Trinity from the old days, Hammer, the 70s stuff. Yeah.
Awesome.
Are you like single focus horror guy, or are you a film buff generally?
I just love films, but mostly horror films.
Yeah, sure.
One great film that came out recently that like I would never talk about on my channel, but I really liked was Tarantino's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I thought that one was really good.
Oh, sure.
I mean, that's Tarantino, right?
I was going to say, you must like his other stuff as well, right? I mean, it wasn't a surprise to you.
No, of course not. It was right, like, sure. Oh, Tarantino, who's that guy?
Yeah, right. Oh, this up-and-coming young filmmaker. Let's see what he's got to offer.
Yeah.
I know it sounds bad. If I say Pulp Fiction remains my favorite, it feels like I'm dissing everything he's done since, because it's, nearly 30 years old now.
Right.
But, probably my favorite though but that doesn't mean I don't admire the other stuff too. Yeah,
right.
He's saying he's only going to make one more movie. Is this right?
Yeah, it's really weird because I mean, I'm not a huge Tarantino fan where I check the news all the time and check all of his interviews. Sure. But as far as I know, he was like, he wanted to make another Kill Bill, but that maybe he just wants to write it. Maybe, I don't know, but I would see that would be weird to me since he wrote and directed the first two.
Sure.
But I think he wanted to make a Kill Bill 3 to like complete the trilogy. And well, yeah, then he also wanted to make another film which wouldn't be Kill Bill 3. That's for sure. Yeah. That's like his 10th movie. So
and wasn't the this is all speculation. I'm not even sure where I hit, but wasn't there some notion that he'd go back to not Pulp Fiction, Reservoir Dogs, and do as in fact, didn't he say something about like he might remake Reservoir Dogs?
Really?
Or am I making that up?
I would imagine so.
I don't know. I don't know.
I don't see Tarantino as a guy who would remake films, let alone remake his own films, you know?
Sure. Remake his own. I don't know, you know, it's such a sort of in-joke movie thing that in a way I could see him doing that.
Yeah?
Yeah, well, not really, but it's like I would find it less hard to believe about him than anybody else.
Right. You know, well, that's kind of...
He's such a movie buff movie guy that, I don't know, I could sort of see him thinking, well, and of course, he would not be the first to do that. Hitchcock remade The Man Who Knew Too Much. And there's another famous example, but I can't think of it. I can't remember it. But yeah, Man Who Knew Too Much, Hitchcock made twice. So you see, maybe Tarantino, that's why he might do it.
Yeah, you know, now that you mentioned that, it doesn't sound too weird. Remade
his own movies, I should do that, you know.
It's like that old school project where you're like, I could do so much better now, and then you do that.
Yeah, right. You're right. Well, yeah. You got to be careful with that stuff, though. It's like, you know, when artists decide they'll re-record their older songs.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there are examples where it's worked well, but I don't remember any. All I remember is it always sucks. It's like, no, man. It's like, yeah, okay, it might have been recorded badly, but you were young and energetic. The band didn't hate each other. You know, it was good. This thing you're doing now, horrible. So, and a lot of people, you know, like I say, you know, I mainly work in prose fiction now, not the movies.
Yeah.
And I know that it's a big thing with writers. Like when you collect your short stories together to do a collection, how much polishing do you do? And I was always of the thought that you got to leave them alone. It was like they are what they are. They were what they were. And if you mess with them now, what is it? It's not the work of that guy back then. It's not really the work of you. You're just futzing with it. But there are other writers who feel the other way, that it's like, no, I can. Well, exactly as you said, I have more technique now.
Yeah,
I mightn't have the youthful energy, but the guitar will be in tune, you know.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's an odd thing.
Hit or miss.
Yeah. Right.
And here's sort of a philosophical question: if you ruled the world, what would it look like?
Well, here is my philosophical answer. Nobody should rule the fucking world.
There you go.
Kings, princes, popes, prime ministers. Don't give power to people. This is going to make me sound like a really radical revolutionary, except it was said nearly 300 years ago. But during the great period of revolutions, the French Revolution and the American Revolution, I was told that it was Thomas Paine who made this quote, but I gather it was actually a disciple of his or something. But I like this for its stone cold viciousness.
Okay.
He said, it was something like, the revolution will not be completed until, or, you know, freedom will never arrive until, whatever the beginning was. We will never be truly free until the last prince is hanged in the entrails of the last priest. Fuck. That guy has taken no prisoners.
Right.
Hanged in the entrails of the last priest. No princes, no priests. So if I ruled the world, I'd make sure that nobody could ever rule the world again.
Nice. Take charge already.
Yeah, or not. Don't let me rule the world, Roger.
Right.
Not a job I'd be good at.
Oh, me neither.
Yeah, right. Well, yeah, because there's that other saying, never give power to somebody who seeks power. Because if you're seeking power to begin with, you're a fucking sociopath. So
yeah, right.
Yeah.
That's a good quote. And then here's a more filmmaking thing again.
Yeah.
What's your advice for other screenwriters, up and coming screenwriters?
Here's what I would say to young screenwriters. In some ways, it's easier than ever to get produced because the means of technology have been released to us all. If you've got an iPhone, you can make a movie.
Yeah.
And you can make a good looking movie. It's not like if, 40 years ago, if you had a 16mm camera, you could make a movie. But now it's really easy. But there's a downside to it being really easy because all the various skills, not just screenwriting, cinematography, direction, editing, if you can do them straight away, you're not going to have the hard lessons. You might get the fun lessons, but you won't get the hard lessons of somebody else saying, that's not good enough, son. And sometimes it's good to learn the hard way as well as the fun way.
Right.
You shouldn't let anybody discourage you. Just because somebody says that's not good enough, son, tell them to fuck off and keep doing whatever you're doing.
Yeah.
But it's sort of, in a way, it is good to have some gatekeepers or difficulties. In terms of advice, practical advice for screenwriters, whatever the genre, it's like if you want to write a movie, make sure that you're writing a movie. Don't be a writer who sort of puts something in screenplay form. You have to understand the differences between other forms like novels, short stories, poetry, comics, whatever, and the movies. Your ultimate audience as a screenwriter will not read your work. They will see and hear. So if you don't have, this is all going to sound very negative. I don't mean it to sound negative. But if you don't have a visual sense, if you don't see the movie, you're probably not a good fit for screenwriting. In prose fiction, you can be in characters' heads all the time.
Yeah.
You can take the reader, so the POV character is both the reader and the protagonist. You can self-reference. A movie, it's like you've got to see what happens, say what happens. So yeah, in practice, I would say this. When I got the job, my first gig, I had no instruction whatsoever. I didn't know anything. I'd done English at school, not film. But I don't know whether I consciously formed this in my head or realized it afterwards. I realized that the trick is pretend the movie's already been made. Watch it in your head.
Right.
Write down what you see. And, don't get sidetracked. Don't do other shit. I mean, put gags in, all the fun stuff, all the insight and philosophical heft, whatever you want, or the gags or the bad gags, you can put all that in the dialogue. But be clear, like see the movie. What are we looking at? It's just, see the frame.
Visualize
Always
it in
be
your
aware
mind.
what the frame is. Where are we looking? What are we seeing?
Right. Yeah.
Into any screenwriting class, that's like the first lesson. So I'm not saying anything profound or new here, but that was the way I formed it for myself in my head. It was like, okay, I'm just going to pretend the movie exists and I'm going to write down what I see. So,
right. So pretty much you need to visualize it all in your mind already.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's,
I would agree though. You know,
yeah.
you kind of,
I mean, it's a movie, you know, it's not,
not a novel.
it's not a novel. Right. And now obviously if the screenplay you want to write is a middle-aged couple having marital difficulties and arguing in the kitchen, you don't need to worry too. First of all, I will never watch your fucking movie. You don't need to visualize that too much because it's
right.
because it's like a stage play. Then it's just like, okay, just let them talk. But certainly for genre movies, crime, horror, adventure, thriller, science fiction, whatever. Yeah, visualize it, see it, and make hard choices about what's worth seeing, as opposed to, well, I can see this, I can see that, I can see that. It's like, it's a 90-minute movie. You know, don't make hard choices.
Right.
Keep it clean and lean.
Well, that's true too, though, because you don't want to give the set designers a hard time either.
Oh yeah, no. Oh, actually, I'm glad you said that, because I will say this: it's considered very bad form, or used to be. By the way, my advice is probably 20 years out of date.
Right.
So when you talk to a screenwriter in his or her 30s, ask them this. But it certainly used to be considered bad form. The phrase was direct on paper, like don't say from an overhead angle to the right we look down at, you know,
right.
don't tell the director where to put his
exactly.
fucking camera, because he or she will get mad at you and resent it and hire somebody else to rewrite your script. But the truth is, here's the dirty, sneaky little secret. Of course you direct on paper. You're trying to write the movie, but you can't do it overtly. I mean, like literally, don't put camera. Every now and then you can put a camera movement in, you know, if it's important that...
yeah. I bet.
Like if something is happening in the foreground, but you want the viewer to notice that somebody else is hiding the bomb, you could say, although again, you should find a more subtle way to say it. You could say, you know, we shift focus to see in the background the bomb is being hit. So, you know, you can, if you have to draw attention to a plot, start putting camera direct. I mean, obviously you can say close up and stuff, but what you've got to do is write. They call them action paragraphs. It doesn't literally mean there's action going on, but the stuff in between the dialogue, they just call action in screenwriting software. You know, the paragraphs where you say what happens. So what you've got to do is very skillfully and without risking offending those big babies, the directors, you do direct on camera. Just don't say it. Just write it in such a way that inevitably, if somebody reads it, they sort of know where the camera's looking. Obviously, you're not saying how fast the camera's going to move or whether it's a cut or a pan or whatever, but just the implication should be in there so that you're offering friendly suggestions to your future collaborators. Don't instruct them. Nobody likes that. Nobody likes to be told what to do.
Yeah.
But so like make it a friendly suggestion, disguise it. It's like, you know, actors really don't like it. I'm sure you're familiar, Roger, but, you know, you get the character name in screenplay and then you get the dialogue chunk underneath it. And occasionally you get what they call parentheticals, which is like it would say, Roger, then a parenthesis, getting bored. And then there's a line of dialogue where you say, oh, yeah, that's really interesting, Pete. And so the parenthetical is a way to say to the actor or any cast and crew member who's reading it, the character doesn't mean what they're saying. So it's a clue to the actor. It's like, yeah, you're saying, no, of course I love you. I love you like I always loved you. But the parenthetical can say, so over this chick or something. And actors don't like it when you do that, but they mind it less if you make it funny. Like if you do say "so over this chick," because that's just a sort of wink joke way of saying it.
Right.
And the truth is that, and a lot of my close friends are actors, they don't always know how they're meant to say those lines. So sometimes you've got to put a parenthetical in. But again, I would say just be careful, regarding as future collaborators and friends in with the mutual creation we're all going to do. But try and steer them right,
Right.
There are plenty of brilliant actors who do not need explanatory parentheticals from the likes of me. But there's also some dumbasses who do, so you gotta choose.
Nice. And then here's the final question.
Yes, sir.
If your life was a movie, how would you want it to end?
That easy question. With the last minute discovery of the immortality serum. That would be great.
Then it can go on forever and ever in sequels and TV series, and
the movie can end. But if my life is, how would I want it to? I don't know. That's a profound question, and also probably it's a tougher question for people who are getting older. I'll be honest. Like if you ask a 25-year-old, they're more likely to say, I'm piloting an X-Wing fighter against the Empire and I go down in a blaze of glory, but I take those fuckers with me.
Yeah.
You don't want that when you get older. It's
right.
Like, first of all, I don't want to be piloting anything. And I certainly don't want to be shot out of the fucking sky. So yeah, I think I'll stick with it. The immortality serum.
Nice.
At the last moment, they find out, hey, Pete, guess what? You can live forever.
Yeah.
Great.
Awesome.
Nobody wants to be old and helpless. You can live forever and be sane and healthy. Otherwise, forget it.
Yeah. Awesome. Is there anything you would like to add to the interview?
No, it's been great. Thank you. It's really enjoyable conversation. And,
very in depth.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think I've babbled enough. I don't, because you try and make these 10 or 15-minute interviews, right? Or
I just go with it. Sometimes it's
10
to 15 minutes.
All right, cool. So it's
the longest one. Actually, you have a signing soon, right? With Encyclopocalypse Publications, or
going to be at Dark Delicacies. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Should I state that date? Do a little plug.
No, I'll do that. All that
You'll
stuff.
do that. Okay, sure.
But Brian Usna, I think he was the longest interview. He was like 2 hours or something.
Blah blah blah.
Exactly.
No, I'm sure it was a good 2 hours.
For sure.
I don't think I've ever met Brian. We've had people, obviously he worked with Stuart Gordon, who I mentioned earlier, and he knows Mark, obviously, from Encyclopocalypse. So we've definitely got people in common. I don't think we've ever met. I'm looking forward to seeing him.
It's a great lineup.
Yeah, it's fun. Yeah. Bill Malone's going to be there. That's great.
Interviewed him.
Oh yeah.
Tom Holland too. So it's like a whole. It could have been called the SlasherPepper interview lineup.
It's the SlasherPepper signing. That's No, we'll keep up the good work, man. It's great.
Thank you. Really appreciate that.
Yeah,
awesome.
You bet. Well, please stay in touch. I'll be happy to do this again anytime, and keep up the good work. This is great.
Awesome. And to everybody watching, thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you guys next time. See ya.